But changing gears here. Oh, back to election season.
Yeah,
So
the Depression 2024.
Yeah, that's really what it should be called.
Yeah.
Not Depression, Great Depression.
Great Depression.
Because everyone in the election was born during the Great Depression.
Bro,
or before. But
it's so weird. I feel like we're just reliving a 1920s right now. Like, we're going through the Gilded Age again.
Yeah.
They're trying to start another world war.
Definitely.
They're definitely doing the Red Scare. Russia is trying to murder everybody. Did you hear about this crazy satellite thing with the Russian nukes in space?
No, I didn't. Actually.
Okay.
First of all, the idea of getting nukes outside of the atmosphere without them exploding sounds...
So, theoretically, it's entirely possible.
I think it's possible, but I'm just saying, imagine the amount of risk that you would take on just to get them out.
So the real problem is the nuclear material, the way it was explained when we actually got the information. Let me back up, because I'm sure nobody heard about this. So there's I believe he's a senator, Mike Turner. He came out and he posted this really cryptic random message urging the president to declassify information for the House in regards to what he called a major national security threat. So it's like super weird for them to just, kind of beat around the bush like that, but make a really public post about something that's supposed to be classified. One, I don't even know if they're necessarily supposed to do that. I feel like you're not even supposed to hint at classified information in that way, but I don't know. I'm not a lawyer.
Well,
so,
I have a security clearance. Like, people do go on Twitter and say, this is classified information. It should be released.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's illegal.
Well,
go ahead.
But he was like hyper specific about, hey, there's a specific national security threat. I think he even said in relation to Russia that I want declassified. So come to find out, the threat was that Russia has some sort of nuclear powered space laser that they can use to shoot down satellites.
Is this similar to the Jewish space laser that Marjorie Taylor Greene talked about?
Weirdly enough, it's probably the exact same technology, because we already knew that this existed, which is why it was so weird for him to come out and all of a sudden like try and make a big deal out of this as if it was new information, when we already knew that this technology existed, because I think Israel has a version and we have a version, yada, yada, yada. But anyway, this is probably more of like a psyop to psych everybody out so they can get that $95 billion aid package passed that seems like it's going to be
to send money to Ukraine and Israel?
Yeah, because they passed it in the Senate. And
Taiwan. It's those three.
Yeah, it's Taiwan, Ukraine, and Israel. They passed that in the Senate. The House right now is basically...
Bro, they're not going to vote for it.
Well, because they're saying, oh, well, we need a border bill. We have a border bill.
We have a border bill that
we're not going to vote on.
Donald Trump told the Republicans not to vote for.
Right.
So now the border bill that the Republicans want is stalled.
They're just going to do the Democratic, we're not having a primary playbook, where they just pretend that there is no border bill.
Yeah. They're just like, why don't you give us a border bill?
Yeah.
Well, what about the one that the Republicans in the Senate wrote?
No.
No, not that one.
We need a real border bill.
Yeah.
That's not real.
So
even though it's on paper and it's been
voted on. Our country is
already.
such a joke. It's like depressing.
It is.
But continue with your
But anyway, so that occurred, and now everybody is kind of up in arms, because why would you come out and make this big announcement and cause all these people to freak out? Because people were like concerned, like, okay, is there a nuclear threat? Is somebody about to get bombed? Like, is there something we don't know? No, just, more Russian Red Scare, which it seems crazy to me that it's the year 2024 and we're still scaremongering like Russia is going to nuke us tomorrow. I just don't, that doesn't make any sense. It's not good for anybody if that occurs.
Russia hasn't stopped Ukraine yet. Like,
what's so weird to me is Russia could have just like obliterated the country. They could have gone way overboard. They could have kind of done what Israel's doing right now, and they could have went way overboard right out the gate.
I don't know. I don't.
But they didn't do it. Well, you say that.
Could they have done more up the gate and like kind of pulled what we did in Iraq, which is destroy?
Weirdly,
yes, they could have done that. But the difference is there is no standing army in Gaza. There is no standing army in Gaza. 100%. Now, there are some Hamas fighters there, but not many. You know, they're in the tunnels. A lot of the leaders are in Qatar.
Yeah.
And
other places.
And then, Israel turned off the power. Israel turned off the water. So, when they're bombing these areas, there's nothing to stop them. There is no Iron Dome. There is no real land defense from air. You know what I'm saying? Ukraine has those things, and they had nonstop incoming weapons and money, where Gaza had none of that.
Yeah.
So it is a little different.
No, it's not a little different. It's a lot different. And
you think that Russia is holding back? I think they threw a lot at them, and it just didn't work.
Well, it's not that it didn't work, because there is one conclusion that's going to happen. Russia is going to win. The question is, what are they going to get after they win?
You think so?
Yeah, it's inevitable. Ukraine doesn't have enough people.
No, I don't disagree with that. But the problem that Russia is having is first of all, the national morale. Well, I saw those polls.
Nope.
No, it went down. There was those giant protests in Russia, which never happens. But I'm saying then they had the polls of Putin, and he was super popular. You know, during wartime, the leader of a country becomes more popular.
Not only that, he is doing a much better job
of propaganda.
It's not even. It is propaganda, but I think the problem is a lot of times when people say propaganda, I think we kind of lose sight of what that means. Like, propaganda is, I am putting this information forward because I think this makes me look best. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be false.
No, it's not just what makes you look best, but I think the main point of propaganda is pointing the national thought process in a certain way. So it doesn't always, so like, one thing that was always crazy to me was when Hitler was rising, he had a minister of propaganda, right? And he would put these movies out, like, that were, cinema movies.
Right.
But one of the movies that was the most popular one was about this kid that was disabled. And the point of the movie, the thing that you gain from the movie is the mother would have been better off killing him to put him out of his misery, which helped them validate
just
killing people that we don't think are worth, right? And I think so. It wasn't necessarily that the point of that propaganda was to make Hitler look good, but the point was, hey, we want all you guys to think this thing, think like this. So think, oh, well, these people are gay, or these people are black, or these people are Jewish, and then we don't really need them. They're kind of in the way, and
even
disabled and all that.
Even in that vein, though, like, you have to have a whole societal system around that for you to even get that from that movie. Like, for you to be able to articulate.
I'm scared. I don't even want to watch it.
Well, because here's the problem, okay? And this is a thing that I will continue to say until I die, okay? We are all Nazis in waiting if we're not careful. We are all
segregationists and we're all the things, because it was propaganda that got America to be okay with slavery.
Correct.
It's propaganda that got us to do the Trail of Tears.
But the important thing,
all the imperialism that happened over time.
Yeah, but the important thing to remember is when people say propaganda, I think people read that as, oh, it's lies, and that does not have to be true. You can have absolute truth and it still be propaganda, because they're selectively going to point your attention to specific facts and not other facts. So one of the things that I think is really important when we're talking about Russia, especially when it comes to Russia, Ukraine versus us, like, a lot of the reason that Putin is popular is because he is more truthful than a lot of other leaders, but just about the specific things he wants to be truthful about. There's other stuff he just doesn't talk about. He does that, like, terrifying smirk thing where you ask him a question and he just kind of chuckles and he doesn't ever answer your question.
And you ever see how his other leaders be, like, scared of him?
Yes.
Like, it'd be crazy. If you ever got time,
he has disappeared a lot of people.
Oh man, one day we should make a list of all the people and just talk about specifically what happened. Like, the people who were against him, like the one guy that was running against him that was winning in the polls,
and then he
just mysteriously
he died,
flipped himself out of a window of a hotel. Like, it'd be crazy.
Shocking.
Like, people be poisoned. It's been hundreds of people poisoned, flipping out of windows, falling out of planes, all type of crazy stuff.
And this is why, like, no matter...
He's like a Bond villain, bro.
And here's the crazy part, okay? No matter what he says out of his mouth, like, I recognize we can't just take him at his word that he doesn't want to take over the world. Like, that's not real. But I don't think we will ever be successful in derailing somebody who has ambitions like that by trying to play that game, by trying to be more brutal, more murderous, more, over the top than somebody like that, because they can always just flip to the other side, because that's not the right thing to do. We shouldn't be randomly murdering civilians. We shouldn't be going out of our way to make people's lives harder and make the world a worse place. So, like, we have to find ways of continue to maintain moral high ground while still not letting, Russia run all over us. And it's a hard balance, and we're not doing it right now. Part of it, I think, is like, somebody did an analysis of how many interviews Joe Biden has done, which is something in the order of like 80 or 90 interviews total in his 4 years.
Which
and
is wild.
In the same period of time, Trump, I think, had done like 300 and some, and Obama had done like 400 and some. in the same 4-year time span. So when you think we're talking 3, 4, 5 times more interviews.
Do they count interviews with prosecutors?
I mean, yes, but it doesn't matter because
maybe that's why Trump's numbers so
hey,
high.
listen, it doesn't matter because they still hurt. Like you knew what he was doing and what he was thinking. Like there were people out here saying, "Yeah, I had a meeting with President Trump. This is what we got from the meeting, and this is what they're doing now." And you could see that. A lot of the stuff that I see is people meeting with like cabinet members, and it's almost never with Biden himself.
The next episode, I want us to specifically talk about the fact that we don't need to look away from Biden. I want to leave Biden alone for today, but I want us to really dig into Biden. But for now, going back to the foreign policy discussion we were just having, okay, I am concerned specifically with foreign policy because, one, I don't like Biden's judgment on foreign policy. I don't care what anyone says. I do think his foreign policy judgment is better than Trump's. His policy on what's going on with Israel is abysmal. It's awful. But Trump's foreign policy on NATO and a lot of international, the Iran nuclear deal was abysmal and made the world less safe.
Yeah.
And I do think that, unfortunately, you and I had the discussion about the lesser two evils things sucking.
Yeah.
But in a practical sense, we have to decide between the guy who doesn't mind the fact that Iran made more nuclear weapons while he was president and the guy who is basically assisting in a genocide right now.
I mean,
and it sucks that is the which one are you going to go with?
Here's the real problem that I have, honestly, truthfully. Like, we are at the point where it is not that one is better or worse. They are equally bad in different ways.
No,
let me explain.
I don't agree with that. Let me explain. But
what is the ultimate fear of Trump when it comes to foreign policy? That he's going to isolate us from our allies, and that he's going to create more enemies than we have right now that we are not going to be able to deal with.
Not just that. When I think of Trump, I think of
chaos.
Oh, of course, even he thinks of chaos. But I think of how damaging he was to our finances as a country.
Okay, let's put a pin right there.
No, I'm saying attaching that to the foreign.
Correct.
So you start a war on two fronts, and then you do tax cuts for the rich, and we don't have any money. That's what I'm talking about.
But here's the problem, okay? We're in the exact same position. It's just with a different set of facts. Wait. Let me explain. Okay. You're saying the deficit's not as high.
It's not.
But we're spending 3 or 4 times more money on wars. We have started 2 new wars in the same 4-year period that we didn't start any wars when Trump was president. That's not to say we weren't spending money blowing people up because Trump was doing a bunch of drone strikes.
Drone strikes by 90% from Obama.
But he was not spending U.S. dollars on bombs and missiles and airplanes and tanks to be shipped overseas. Like, those were not expenditures that we were making while we were under Trump. Not to the degree that we are now.
I was about to say, yeah.
We are...
Well, he technically sold weapons to Saudi Arabia.
That is true.
We were giving weapons to a lot of these countries.
He only was willing to sell weapons to Saudi Arabia because they gave him personally a bunch of money.
They gave his son-in-law literally what was it, $2 billion or $1 billion?
Yeah, it was like $2 billion.
$2 billion, like right after they got out of the
No, it was a small loan, don't you know?
Yeah, it's just that I think, me personally, they're both horrible. But I just will never be able to bring myself to say that Trump and Biden are equal. They're just not equal to me. They're just not.
The problem that I have is
Biden is horrible, but he's not equal to Trump to me.
I don't know what you mean. Do you mean like the outcome of the decisions that he's making are not equally bad? Because I don't know how you could argue that. Nobody thinks he's competent because he can't speak for an hour. Mm-hmm. Nobody trusts that he's actually the one leading the ship. So everybody's dealing with whichever deputy is over their particular issue.
But that was the same thing that was happening with Trump.
Absolutely.
Trump wasn't in charge of anything.
So wait. I'm not arguing that it was better under Trump. I'm arguing that it's equally bad. You're telling me that it was the same, and I'm agreeing with you.
No, I'm saying that was the same.
Okay.
The president is not like having a meeting. Trump was not having a meeting with every department and saying, okay, this is what you do next.
Of course not.
But neither is Biden. So that's fair.
But
that aspect is the same.
But people actually believe, whether it's a good decision or not, Trump is the one that's making it.
Who believes that?
I think the world believes that at the end of the day, Trump is the one calling the shots because there were a lot of bad
Yeah,
decisions being made on his behalf.
Yes, yeah. Well, okay, that's fair.
And to be fair,
that's fair.
and
What
to
you
be
just
fair
said
to
is fair.
Biden, there's a lot of bad decisions being made on his behalf because it is very, very widely reported that a lot of this stuff, and specifically in regards to Israel, is directly coming from him. He's the one signing off on it.
Well, he's
the
old
one.
school. He's old school. You know, the term they use is Zionist or whatever. The people that support no matter what Israel does.
It's Christian Zionist.
Yeah,
because you got to specify. I was listening to somebody talk about it the other day, and it is kind of weird.
I don't know. It just feels weird when I say it. It just comes
so
because it feels almost
blasphemous or something.
No, not blasphemous, but almost like a violent term. I don't know why. I know what the word means.
You know why? Because when you say Christian Zionist, the thing that brings to mind is crusades, and it brings to mind a bunch of the terrible stuff that we do that we have done as like.
I'm a Christian, but I ain't do none of that.
You're right. Yeah. I'm not claiming that. That other Christians have done in our name in the past, violent, horrible, bigoted, terrible stuff. And it's really weird. Somebody was talking about the fact that there are some people who are I guess trying to force the rapture to happen, basically by supporting Israel.
Isn't that crazy?
That seems wild to me.
Look, check this out. So a lot of people, right? They believe that the world is coming to an end.
Yes.
And they think, in the Bible, it talks all this stuff about the giant war that's supposed to happen.
All the Jews dying, except all the Jews last 144,000.
And then the ones that stay alive are like, okay, we're going to believe in God now. And God's going to come back. And then a bunch of people are going to die. And there's going to be a giant God versus the devil war thing that happens on earth and the blood rain and all this stuff. You guys, we don't want that to happen either.
Right.
So
why are you trying to force the rapture to happen?
Bro,
There's a lot of really terrible stuff to happen.
I haven't even been to Australia yet. I'm racing against the boomers who are destroying the environment. Why are you trying to speed this thing up?
I mean, that's a great question. I don't know. I don't. And again, if the answer was, hey, listen, we think there needs to be a safe place for Jewish people to go.
Right. Which is true.
That's a laudable goal. I can rock with that all day long. Hey, we think the Jewish people need to have their own nation such that the place that they pick, they get to murder anybody that disagrees with the place that they pick. I kind of can't rock with that. So, we need to find a way.
And my thing is one thing to say we're going to kill Hamas. It's a totally different thing to say, let's just kill everyone in the Gaza Strip. Even the Israeli people that escaped capture are getting murdered in the Gaza Strip. Crazy.
There's a thing that happens that I really don't like. You remember, maybe you don't. I don't know if you're going to claim this. Let's see. Test time. When we were young, there would be times where, you knew you were aggravating me by doing something. Oh, I'm not touching you. And then you would stick your finger, less than an inch from my face. And then you would just keep saying, I'm not touching you. Now, in actuality, you are not touching me. Sometimes, though, you would poke me in the face and then say, I didn't touch you. Or you would flick my hair and say, I didn't touch you. Or you would smack my ear and say, I didn't touch you. But the whole time, the thing that's aggravating me, the actual problem is that you're trying to be annoying, and you know you're trying to be annoying. Israel is trying to murder innocent people. But they are saying things like, oh, there's Hamas in the hospital, there's Hamas in the school, there's Hamas in the tents. And at a certain point, I feel like we all are being gaslit to the nth degree because we know that they're just using it cynically. It's just oh, well, I'm not touching you. I didn't actually touch him. My finger was just close. I didn't touch him.
Yeah, when they say stuff like, we are urging Israel to do everything they can to minimize civilian casualties. Oh, are you? Israel has assured us that they are taking steps to ensure that their precision is on the Hamas fighters. Oh, are they? After they've killed 37,000 innocent civilians, now we're gonna go after Hamas, right?
What's worse is they keep launching these huge attacks on American holidays when they know
we're not paying attention.
That our news cycle is not going to catch it until the next day.
And even if they catch it, there was a study that was conducted recently of all of the news articles written about the Gaza war, slaughter, and it was comparing the word choices used when they discuss the Hamas and the Palestinians, and when they discuss Israel. So when they talked about the children that were killed in Israel on October 7th last year, they would say things like innocent and victim and children.
And they would use the word children.
But when they would talk about the Palestinian innocent civilians that have been killed since. All like the majority of the articles would all say stuff like less than 18-year-old or
young people,
younger Gazans and things like that. And they wouldn't say words like victim or innocent or children or child or kids. They wouldn't even say those words when they were talking about people as young as 2 and 3 years old.
Yeah.
And there was a huge story this week. It was. Ooh.
You talking about the girl with the ambulance?
Yes. So basically, what happened was, how old was she? 6?
Yeah.
It was a 6-year-old girl who was in the car with her aunt and her cousins, and I believe her other aunt or her uncle. But I know it was one aunt in the car and her children, and then this little girl who's as her cousin, and she called the ambulance from in the car to tell them that she was the only person alive in the vehicle.